Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Before I hand it over, just a quick housekeeping. Please make sure your phone is muted. If you have any questions during, you feel free to open that or enter them in the chat box. And then, again, I think we put in the chat, just please, if you can change your name to your organization and then name, that would help us when we get to breakout rooms. So thank you so much, everyone. And I will go ahead and hand it over.
Shanna, you want to start us?
Yes. Sorry, multitasking here. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm excited to be back with the group. Sounds like you guys got a lot done while I was out, so I'm excited to jump back in the conversation. On your screen, you should be able to see today's agenda. We are going to be focusing today on just acknowledging that we've completed our first year of the collaborative in the midst of a pandemic. So a lot has happened in the past year, and we thought it would be helpful just to touch base as a reminder. We also have some new folks in the group about what we've committed to and what our goals are moving forward. A reminder of who our partners are and what we're trying to accomplish together in this 5-year partnership. And then we'll spend the rest of the afternoon talking about data. And I know some of you do have to drop off early, so I would just ask that for those of you who missed the data exercise, if you would make a point to schedule time with your team to walk through the data exercise independently after the meeting. And if you need any support from either our team or from NIPSI as you do so, please don't hesitate to reach out. So if we want to move to the next slide. Actually, you can skip right to the next one. So just as a reminder of why we all came together, as I said, this is really the end of our first year together in partnership. And when we first came together, we set a goal that every Delaware student would be able to enter the 12th grade with informed career and educational goals, that the students would acquire the academic and technical knowledge necessary to be successful as they pursue those goals beyond high school. Innovation and district charters are part of this collaboration, and they will ultimately serve as a model for the state as to how to achieve this for every student. Next slide. We set 2 very bold objectives as a team together. One is to disrupt the current assumptions about preparation for college and career that ultimately result in inequitable access to the knowledge and skills that students need to be able to effectively define and pursue their career and post-secondary educational goals. So we agreed to all become a team of disruptors, and that's the work that we are seeking to do through this collaboration. We also are, by default, in a diverse group of stakeholders who are engaging in a learning community. So this work is not about DOE providing a project for you to do, but about us coming together as a learning community to focus on self-reflection, strategic innovation, and opportunity to scale best practices that provide every student with the opportunity to explore their potential career paths and develop the knowledge and skills to attain the education necessary. I have my co-pilot with me today. Education necessary to pursue their identified career interests. And so our goal through these years together and the work that we're doing together is to learn from one another, share ideas, push each other to grow, and to challenge each other. Next slide. So what will we accomplish by the end of these goals, by the end of this 5-year partnership? So we're going into the 2nd year of that 5-year partnership. And so our goal by the end is that we will have identified and integrated and evaluated the necessary evidence-based practices, policies, and supports through those innovation districts and charters for the purpose of preparing to scale best-in-class model statewide. So our goal is, as we are learning from one another, testing out theories and adopting new practices and policies, that we will be able to evaluate the impact and ultimately be able to share that knowledge across the state for other schools and districts to be able to adopt them. We also, throughout this process, will get professional development and coaching to support all of our work as we are learning and identifying those practices, policies, and supports. And lastly, we will provide supports that are based in evidence to the students as they go through the partnership. So every school has committed partners that will be providing services to their 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th graders throughout this partnership. Next slide. And lastly, as a reminder, each of us signed a commitment form to be a part of this group for the 5-year period. For those of you who are new, if you're interested in a copy, it can be found in our group's Google folder, or you can send an email or a note in the chat and we can send that out to you if you just need a copy of it. We would just ask that for those of you who have new team members, if you could provide us an updated list of your current team with titles and email addresses, just so that we are sure we have the most up-to-date list for the group. Next slide. We're not going to go through these questions today, but these are questions that we posed to you. Oh, go back. These are questions that we posed to you at the beginning of the partnership as we started thinking about the changes, as you started thinking about what our commitment would be together. So we just wanted to include them here as a reminder that this work isn't just about starting something new. It's also about what we need to stop doing and where we need to make changes to what's already in place. Sometimes from both sides of that coin. And also be clear on why we're doing the things and how it's going to accomplish the goals and the vision that we have for our students. Next slide. This slide is just a reminder of the data that we have worked on. We are looking at it to be able to see where we are making impact, and whether our students are making the progress that they need to make. At the beginning of the partnership, I sent a copy of all of this data to each school team so that you would have that the current version of that data. On this slide, I've identified the time together. One question that we have for the team is whether it would be helpful for DOE to be working on trying to create a standardized version of all of this. Some feedback on, and we can be talking to our UD research team about whether that is something we would be able to develop for you as a helpful tool. Next slide. And so this just a reminder, there's a lot of different components to the collaborative. So we find it's helpful just to remind ourselves of what those components are and how they support each other. So we have these meetings on a regular basis to be able to connect as a large group, learn on various topics, and go deep in conversation on those topics. It's also where we'll begin to do some work together as we start to move from the learning process to the development of the various interventions and changes. We have formed a smaller team that is working on the equity work, and they have done some deep dive professional development over the last couple of months and will be engaging with us in that conversation moving forward. That work happened and also bringing in students and parent representatives from our school partners and our community partners. And then we have partnerships with Stand By Me, Junior Achievement, and our colleges, so that our students are getting experiences and being able to engage in deep learning over the course of 7th through 10th grade. And then we have NIPSI as a coach for our schools to be able to have a safe space for and a thought partner for them to be able to work through their data, look at what the data is telling them, and identify strategies to begin to move forward and improve the supports for their students. Next slide. Before we move to the next section, I'm just going to pause and open it up. I know that there were several folks who came in kind of in the middle of that quick refresh. So I just want to check in, see if anybody has any questions. You can put it in the chat, or you can come off of mute to be able to ask any questions. Okay. Feel free at any point, if questions do come to mind, to put them in the chat. You can put it out there to everyone, or you can send it directly to me. Just as a reminder, we're asking for the sake of when we do breakout groups, if you can change your display name to show your organization or school and then your name, so that they will be able to divide you up accordingly during the breakout groups. So I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Kelly.
Yep, I'll take it. Thanks, Shanna. So in the spirit of refreshing where we started over a year ago, we thought it would be helpful now that we're getting to know you guys separately in coaching calls to just refresh a little bit on the National Post-Secondary Strategy Institute model. So Amanda, you can go to the next slide. So we just want to take a step back and share, how we approach our work. So we think it helps to have that larger frame as we get into certainly the activities today, and then where we will continue to keep going through the meetings throughout the year. So on the left-hand side, you'll see our NIPSI model, and we have our new color palette. So you'll see our beautiful little circles there, where we have, so NIPSI is very focused on students at the center. So we're wholly focused on the strategies and frameworks around student success, but we come at it from institutional capacity angle, thinking that, in order for students to really be successful, the adults have to be organized at the district level. And then to do that, we need to have three components that are fully integrated. So that's having post-secondary leadership who sets a vision for the work, having a data strategy that is using reliable data to inform strategy development and identify interventions, and then engaging counselors as leaders. So we've worked with you guys quite a bit. Everyone, we have data, we have more data flowing. We know counselors are, we've talked about strategies to get counselors really embedded in the work, but we're focused on keeping those three, not just having each of those three components in place, but how they integrate together. So how we get counselors to start using data, how the vision sets the work that everyone is doing. And to do that work, it's and we want to acknowledge that we know it's hard work, right? That's why we put ourselves in there to support, because to do that, you have to build relationships and partnerships. You have to have a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration to get there. And that's why we, the work we do always revolves, I guess, around teams. Right? So that's why we ask you guys to come here as a team and to have folks who are leading the work, who know the data, who are working with the counselors or are yourself counselors, to work together and push those conversations together. Because without that integration, we're going to be working in our silos and not staying focused on what we can do for students. So I'm going to turn it over to Joyce to talk a little bit more about how we use this lens of leadership strategy, data strategy, and counselors to get at equity.
Well, hello, everyone. It's nice to see everybody again. On the next slide, we just want to take a deeper look at the three components of the NIPSI model. We want to start by saying that it begins with a belief in educational equity. And just in talking to everybody on the coaching calls, we hear your passion, your vision for student success certainly aligns with the NIPSI model. And belief is a way of thinking. And so, as Kelly said, this is a very difficult thing to do to make all college and career ready. But we know that belief will drive your behaviors. And despite all the other obstacles we face post-COVID, within COVID, we want to keep this way of thinking that equitable outcomes can be accomplished for all of our children. And so working together, sharing those ideas across all of the stakeholders, across all of you, both internal and external partners, is the way to go. And at the end of the day, we're going to be so thrilled that we can for sure say that our students have a pathway to post-secondary opportunity, that they are not going to be left with only a high school diploma, which the research says is not going to get them into most of the living wage jobs of the future. On the next slide, you will see the three components of the model again. And leadership is very important to this work. So we're simply thrilled by engaging in conversation with all the district level leaders and all the leaders of organizations. And we appreciate the time you take from your busy day to meet with us, because really the leader has to say, pay attention to these marginalized students. And the way that you do that is to get into a data strategy. So the marginalized student approach is influenced by the decision makers of the leader. Shared your stories and your trajectory into your leadership positions. And so that fuels the passion. But we have to make sure that we are measuring equity. It's not enough just to look at data, but we have to commit to saying, through disaggregating the data points, who needs our help and how can we intervene in their lives. And we at NIPSI believe the way to do that systemically is through engaging school counselors. It makes sense, right? They have assigned caseloads of students and they know the culture of the building, the culture of the school, the challenges that students and families face. Oftentimes, as a school counselor, former school counselor, I know that kids will make their way into a building. It could be 10 feet of snow on the ground, and they come into the school to sit in your chair just to share with you what they are experiencing. So engaging school counselors is important, but we need them to have data to really be informed about what is happening and whether or not the interventions they're putting in place are really supporting academic learning, as well as addressing the social and emotional needs of students so that they can reach both career and college aspirations. And so on the next slide, we just want to dig a little deeper into what we're trying to talk about today, and that is the PSAP and you completing it, and it being a guiding tool around establishing strategies and interventions to make sure all students are both college and career ready. I actually love this PSAP planning across a whole state. So you can imagine that you working in this collaborative will help us indeed capture the challenges and the successes as we begin to advise systemically and put in place practices in order to make sure everybody reaches the goal of all kids being college and career ready. On the next slide, we just want to iterate and underscore that this is a both and vision. It's not some kids are over here in CTE and they're only going to go on a career pathway. It's not other kids are over here doing all kind of college level course taking. It's a both and vision, because careers drive the post-secondary planning of students. So hearing their aspirations around what they want to be, we as advisors and directors and guiders of student achievement have to have this vision that is both and together. And so what is your overall vision, and is it being pushed out that kids should be both college ready and career ready? And this is what we mean when we say post-secondary. We aren't saying one thing is over the other, but at the end of the day, students should have a credential beyond a high school diploma to really position them for post-secondary success and to earn a living wage. And so on the next slide, this is the idea behind the Delaware Success Collaborative. How can we share learning and share planning to make sure that all students will reach the goal? I cannot wait to see what the outcome will be at the end of this collaborative experience, to say what things have taken place across all of your schools and organizations, both higher ed, nonprofit, and the K-12 community, that really works, that so that we can capture these practices and share them with others. Shauna said, you're going to be a model for the rest of the state, and that's very exciting. And so in order to make sure we document the planning and what is taking place, we have to use data. And that's why the second half of this meeting will focus on how to review data and how we can document the supports and the effectiveness of the supports that are taking place. On the next slide, we want to just take a moment to look again at the 6 areas in the PSAP. The first being college and career readiness, then every student, that every student is in fact college and career ready. The overall progress that you're tracking and monitoring to say that you're moving toward this goal. What supports are you putting in place? That vertical alignment is very, very important. The transition into high school from the middle school level, as well as the transition that happens between grade 12 and into post-secondary. So vertical alignment, as well as what supports are you putting in place to make sure that the students and their families are receiving the information that they can make this progress that we so desperately want them to all become college and career ready. And then the continuous improvement component is just how are you preparing yourself to inform all practitioners? This is a dynamic profession. We have to get ongoing training because it changes from day to day. So those again are the 6 collaborative action areas. On the next slide, in this next section, what we want to do is just take a temperature check to see just a little bit about your thinking. We know that we have been impacted and challenged by COVID, but we know the work is also going forward. So we're going to begin with the SharePoint 1, and we want you to think about how are you measuring overall progress. So the indicators are all of your freshmen entering and staying on track to graduation? Are your 12th graders on track? And what's the percentage of your 9th grade on track rates aligned to your 12th grade on track rates? Are they the same? Did that them transition into higher ed, and are they persisting? So those are the overall goals of measuring the overall progress. So we have a little poll question for you on this next slide. Go back one. I know the percentage of 9th grade students who are on track to graduate. I know the percentage of 9th grade students who are on track to graduate. And that would be from the K-12 side, as well as the higher ed side and the nonprofits that are working with us. Have you seen any information that would help inform you around 9th grade on track? Because 9th grade is a very important year. If we could keep them on track during their freshman year, they probably are going to graduate. Okay. All right, and so we see these results, 74% said they have not, you don't know the percentage, but 26% do know the percentage. So thank you for sharing that information. It's an area where we should probably focus on going into the future and learn from those schools and organizations who are paying attention to that 9th grade on track metric. So thank you so much. Going on to the next slide. The second SharePoint area is targeting student supports. And so we need the groups to take some systematic action steps in order to identify subgroup populations and then target them for support. And this requires disaggregating data so that you will actually know which kids need additional help. That's the equity piece. Equality is that you're giving everybody something, but equity means that you need to see who needs a little bit more. I'll take college tours, for example. We often post up, hey, we're going on a college tour. Who wants to go? The real go-getter kids will sign up, fill up the buses. We should be tracking and monitoring to see which students don't sign up, and then go and tap them on the shoulder and say, you know what? I want you to go. We have to pay attention to our subgroups and target them. For any group that's not showing up to our activities, we need to address that gap with some intentional planning. How are we going to communicate with them? How are we going to target them? That would be the work around this point too. On the next slide, we want to do a little polling question around your current practice. So please share with us at this time whether or not you use disaggregated data on AP, dual enrollment, assessment data, work-based learning, multi-literacy certificate, industry recognized credential. Do you use any of these data points to target subgroups needing additional interventions and support in your current practice? What's happening around these indicators, and are you disaggregating them in order to target interventions? Okay, everybody's weighed in. So we have 57% saying you are not using data in this way, but 47% are saying, yes, you are using this data. And it will be very interesting as we do our breakout rooms and begin to share and think about how we're analyzing data, to hear what other of your peers are doing around using disaggregated data around these indicators. These are very important indicators for you. For that, we're moving on to the next slide. And this share point is around vertical alignment. And we need to look at vertical alignment in order to guide students into high school, from middle school, into post-secondary. And so this alignment around transitioning in and transitioning out, you need to have intentional to support the transition into high school and then the transition into post-secondary. And that's the next polling question on the next slide. I meet with middle schools and higher ed institutions to align and review transition practices. I meet with middle schools and higher ed institutions to align and review intentional transition practices. There should be some intentional practices that are taking place that offer those supports as students enter high school and they enter post-secondary. So you've had some good thinking around this. Enter your answers. Okay. Yes, terrific. Most of you have some intentional practices around these transition points, 61%, and 39% say you don't. So there's some work to be done, but most of you are on the right path, and we are excited to hear what you're doing around the transition practices. On the next slide, we want to go on to the next share area, and that is strengthening school supports. So this work of post-secondary advising requires that you continuously support and also receive information to provide that support. So I suggested a list of 6 support calendars that you can make. I love calendars because that's documented information about what we're doing on a day-to-day basis that can be shared with others. So what would it look like if you wrote down all of the ways you support students on their career and college pathways? What are you doing for families? What internal supports are happening across your faculty, across even the bus drivers? I had a district that gave the bus drivers a script to say, hey, I want you to be post-secondary be post-secondary ready. So thinking about how you can engage everyone. Again, this is a heavy lift, and the vision has to be embraced across the entire district. We are so thankful for the external partners and the higher ed partners in this work. So what kind of supports do they offer? And on our coaching calls, we heard some very good information about the partnerships that existed at the higher ed level and at the nonprofit level. So what would that look like, to make a list we could share with everybody in order to make sure we can target those supports toward students and families and even teachers who need to have this information as well. And so just think about strengthening supports in a systematic way so that everybody understands and knows what's taking place. So can you please go to the next slide, and let's vote, and let me see what's happening across your organization. So my organization has a calendar of student and family supports that can support college and career readiness.
May I ask, when you're talking about a calendar, I'm not exactly clear what you're talking about here.
Do you have an actual calendar? And how it would look in an ideal way, like for school counselors, we ask them to create calendars about what they're doing every week, and to share these calendars on the website, post them on their doors, and share it out to the schools and the faculty so that everybody knows what you're doing. And so I operate on a calendar all of the time. And perhaps the higher eds had a calendar to say, when do they do school visits? I know they go out at certain times of the year. When do they do campus tours? And the when
Okay, so like when we're doing scheduling, when we're doing all the different things we do. Got it.
Exactly, exactly. And what that calendar is going to do is going to reveal where you're putting most of your efforts. And it will help you determine, hey, I need to add this in, or maybe I can take this away, or I can partner with higher ed or my external partners to support work in this area. So it's just a simple way of thinking about documenting. We want to move to institutionalizing our work. So 63% have a calendar, that's great, and 36% do not. And so since we have some organizations that have those calendars, that's a good sharing area that the collaborative can take on, is to just figuring out how we can share our calendars so to give everybody some ideas about supports that people are doing, as well as documenting and sharing out the results. Because I had the opportunity to talk about AP one time, and a parent said, do you mean to tell me that my kid could have gotten college credit while in high school? And she said that her kid had went through 4 years and no one had ever told her about advanced placement. Deficit. And so many times we in the schools, we think everybody understands what we're doing, but the simplest thing really can inform all families and students who don't know the steps and the supports that are available. Okay, and the next question, this is around the last share point that we want to get to, and that's continuous support. I mentioned the importance of professional development. I actually asked my school counselors to make a professional development wish list up. So that is a reflective point to say, we're asking you to do this work of making sure all kids are both career and college ready. What training do you need to be an effective informant? Nothing is worse than giving out bad information or saying to a kid, I don't know. We have to be able to say, hey, we can find out. You know, everybody from kindergarten on should know about career information and post-secondary information. My dream is to have every ninth grader that enters high school be able to understand what is FAFSA, including their parents. Counselors had relayed to me around assessments, when people talk about the SAT, some of the students say, oh, that's a SAT test. You know, they don't understand that it's the scholastic aptitude test given for college admissions. So again, vocabulary is key. And we as professionals in the field must inform ourselves about the information that's out there. And so this Department of Ed, Delaware Department of Ed, has several things that they put out for your advantage to support and increase your knowledge around professional development. There's the Texas On-Course modules. These are great information modules that are online and you can access in order to get knowledge and background information around different parts of the post. We here at NIPSE are very excited to be your coaching partners. All of our work has been done at Chicago Public Schools, where all three of us, Kelly, Greg, and myself, worked at the central office level to establish the Department of College and Career Readiness back in the early 2000s. That department has expanded and grown today, but many of the practices that we made up and established are still in place. And we're really excited about FAFSA. We were the first district in the nation to start the FAFSA tracking and to see it spread across the nation and even become a state requirement for 5 states now, I believe, is really exciting. And so the point I'm trying to make is that we're your experienced practitioners. We've walked in your shoes. Greg and I both were teachers. I have been a school counselor and director of school counseling. Kelly has been working in the research policy area, in the CTE area, working with data, working in our department to really set up these systems to measure and disaggregate the data. So we have had our fingers in the pudding. We are not people who are talking about theory, but this is the work that we've actually done. And also the department has, they put up webinars, they have additional supports that are available. So we're just getting a temperature check around the supports that you are using that are helpful to you. And so on this next slide, please let us know through this polling question. How many times over the past year have you attended PD related to the collaborative student outcome measures? So how many times have you attended or been had the information delivered to you through any of the professional development opportunities related to the collaborative student outcome measures around making sure all students are college or career ready? 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, more than 4 times. The aim here is to make sure you receive support as we ask you to do this very heavy lift of doing this work. Okay, everybody is weighed in. Let's see the results. Okay, great. 37% say they have accessed it at least 4 times, 3 times at 32%, 2 times at 11%, 1 time at just 21%. So this is great. We want to be supportive as you advance your work. Thank you so much for engaging with this section. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly now.
Thanks, Joyce. Before we move into the next section, I actually just want to pause and see if anyone has questions or comments about any of those pieces that Joyce just covered. I saw there was kind of some back and forth in the chat around middle schools, and please feel free to unmute and ask questions if you have them.
I see one, Kelly, about the middle schools. Our school counselors using calendars and sharing them beyond the office. Absolutely. I think everybody should have a calendar because it helps to break down the silos and you could see where your work could be integrated. Teachers were my best partners at my school where I worked. We did all kinds of things because one activity in particular, I had a teacher, she loved to do drama and theater, but she had the kids journal their aspirations. So we would give the English department the aspiration results because we knew what every kid wanted to be. And then the kids would journal about that. They give them a prompt and then they would act out, scenarios about barriers, just some very rich experiences. And so this kind of work can take place from kindergarten on and just helping everybody think about how they're organizing their day to support students. And again, avoid this randomness. I'm doing something because I like to do it, rather than is what I'm doing really going to help propel students onto a college and career ready path. I loved it when the kindergarten and the elementary teachers, they think of great interventions. They have a fight song day. They teach the kids the college fight songs. They bring their little stuffed animals that are the college mascots. No, they had one elementary counselor had made you put your face in the hole. They had a graduation face, a cutout, and the kids stuck in their little face, and they're like, I'm going to college kind of thing. So yeah, a calendar is very helpful for everybody. And somebody said that the high school people have calendars because it's part of the counseling plan. And so are you sharing those out? If you have the information, think about how you're sharing it out. Questions around SPED. When we say all students, we really do mean all students. My internet is. There are lots of opportunities for SPED, special ed students, and the way you support them is to make sure they know how to advocate for themselves. My higher ed colleagues say that when the kids get to post-secondary, the kids need to advocate for extended time and all the other learning supports that they need. But at the high school side, we have intentional meetings, quarterly with the parents, with all stakeholders to check on their progress. But when they get to post-secondary, they're pretty much on their own. So one of the strategies we used senior year was to really share with the students and their families how they could advocate around the disability. So that's a transition area that you should think about and look at to hand-holding support. Okay, so the question here is that as a middle school counselor, we work with elementary for incoming students and the supports needed. We also reach out to feeder high schools when they are open to it to make sure supports to continue. We all have a lot of data that we analyze, but not the specific sources mentioned on the slide. Those data points are how the state is evaluating college and career readiness. And Shauna, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, but those are, I don't know if you've seen the college and career ready reports, but those are the data areas. And those are not the end all be all data areas. Actually, NIPSE has 23 foundational data points that we use, but they all feed in to support those ultimate outcome goals. And Shauna, I don't know if you want to add anything more about those data elements that were on the slide.
Yeah, I can just share that the data, and Amanda, if you can go back to the slide so we can look at just the data that guides our work slide. We picked those data points because they are all part of either the accountability support system that we use and or part of our college success report. So we knew that there would be broad access to those data points for us to be able to get a lens in terms of all students, but also they give us a good indication of how students are both progressing towards being ready for their post-secondary options and then how they're performing once they've left high school. So it gives us an opportunity to kind of see that progression, know if we're on track and going in the right direction. So for example, if you're looking at proficiency, when we looked at as you looked last week at the reports that the student success reports, you could see that there was a clear connection between students' proficiency in 8th grade and their proficiency in 11th grade. So if we start looking at 5th grade to see where they're on track for 8th grade, then that tells us where we need to make some intervention. So it gives us the opportunity to be able to make some informed decisions before we get to the 12th grade. Often we focus a lot on that 12th grade data, but there's not as much time in the 12th grade to make those interventions. So this gives us a broader array of data to be able to think about potential opportunities for interventions to support students. The college enrollment data, CTE pathway data, and the 4-year grad rate all to tell us where students are completing their journey for high school and what choices they're making after high school. I think there's a slide towards the end where we'll go more in detail to explain what the indicators are to define college ready and career ready. But we ultimately tried to create a list so that there wasn't any one way of defining college ready or career ready. You all remember, I'm sure, that as we started this work several years ago, we were focused just on the SAT in terms of looking at college ready. And so as we moved into ESSA, we really wanted to have a broader definition of what college ready and career ready was, so that students could demonstrate readiness in a number of ways, which we know is scope.
Yeah, I think Amanda, that slide 23 has all of those data points on that the state is looking at for college and career readiness. I think it's important that everybody takes a look at those and takes and understand that's it there. That everybody across the district should know about advanced placement. I just shared that little story with you about a parent didn't even know. And so how can you ensure that coming into the high school realm that people know about this? And so that vertical alignment between middle, elementary, and high, I don't know if counselors are meeting, if teachers are meeting around these very things, so that do all middle schools know about the dual enrollment option at the high school? Can they begin to talk about that option with students and their families? Do you know the assessments, the opportunities for work-based learning, the multiliteracy certificate, so the industry recognized credentials? The CT area is so rich with information, and they often are not included in these conversations. So I'm a big proponent of CTE being the career part of college ready. And so everybody must know about all of these. And regardless if you're elementary, middle, or high, if you're SPED, if you're English, the goal is for the collaborative to share information across the district so that we can together take on this heavy lift of helping to make sure all kids have viable post-secondary pathways. And these are great questions. I appreciate them. And I'm going to let Kelly go because we're up against time. But thank you. But keep the questions rolling in and we'll get back to you if we don't have time to address them here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
A lot of times when we're talking to students about doing well in school, you know how it is. You'll talk to them about you should do well in English and math. And they're like, well, I'm not going to college because, if they can find a way to argue, they will. So we don't spend enough time getting in people who are like in career fields to talk to the kids about how math, English, and attendance are important no matter what career you're going into. So even if you were in what would be considered a blue collar field, we need to get some people from those fields to come in and talk to kids at a younger age too, where they talk to them about the importance of English, math, and attendance, just being at work every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so this is the silo breaking down and not defining kids. My challenge is when you were 18, 16, 15, did you have a vision for doing something? And are you now working in that vision? I started out wanting to be a teacher. I never wanted to be a school counselor. And most people that I talk to don't wind up in what their vision is. And so my whole thing is to make sure kids understand the possibilities. You can say to me, I don't want to go to college, but what do you know about it? I'm going to teach you about it in case you have a mind change. And college doesn't mean the regular 2-year and 4-year. There's so many industry pathways that go through the 2-year colleges now. So it's about getting additional training. And I want everybody to go to Georgetown Workforce on Education website. They do a whole bunch of assessing the career needs across the nation from a research standpoint. And they're the ones that say 65% of the jobs are going to require more than a high school diploma. So you as an advisor should say to kids, okay, but let me broaden your vision, because do you know, here's a list of jobs that are going to require some post-secondary training if you want to make this wage. So I don't want to take what a kid tells me. I'm going to expose them. They will never say you didn't tell me, but ultimately the choice is there. So I'm all about exposure, exploration around a variety of areas. And that's why I love the CTE program of study, because it shows you the on-ramps and off-ramps. You can stop at a high school diploma, industry certification, a 2-year or 4-year. And when kids said that to me, when I was advising them, I know most of the males love cars. And so they have the auto mechanics CTE pathway at the high school, but the 2-year program I knew about in one of our 2-year colleges was with Mercedes. And they, if you got a 2-year credential, you could start as a mechanic for Mercedes. And then if you completed that, they had a 4-year credential that was offered at a 4-year institution where you could go in and do the next level up. So that's the kind of advising that we need to do, but we have to be informed. And I'm going to stop there, Kelly. Sorry. Thank you for sharing that question. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's really great. Both that part you just addressed, Joyce, and what Shauna was sharing, lead us into like why we're going to start talking about how we use data in practice, because it's easy to look at data, right? And again, I've never met anybody who hasn't had some sort of data. Usually people have too much data, and by too much, I mean it's sitting there, they don't know what to do with it, right? But we want to be really intentional as we think about those data points that Shauna talked about, and how, regardless of where you are in the continuum, and we have middle school, we have high school, we have higher ed, we have nonprofit partners all on this call, regardless of where you are in that continuum, we want you to own a piece of that data. So it might not be something that you feel wholly is like within your realm, but there's some way that you can contribute to that. So I'm going to walk you through kind of some bigger picture thinking first, and then we'll get back to that list that Shauna shared. So next slide, please. So when we, one back. There we go. So when we start, so for me, right, like to be in this data world and think about how we use it and how we're strategic around it, we always want to start with our theory of action, which you all have, right? It's our theory of how we think we're going to get somewhere. So that might be our, and it's always how we're going to get to some goal that's been set. So that might be your district mission. Your district mission might be to graduate all students college and career ready. So how do you get there, right? Your strategic priorities might be to, for middle school, it might be to hit a certain sort of high school readiness standard. For high school, it might be to graduate your students, it might be to enroll them in college, it might be to get some sort of college and career combo status. For higher eds, it might be around remediation, it might be around college persistence, completion. Like, what are your priorities? What are your beliefs? What do we want for all students? And if you're looking at the data, what are those outcome gaps? So your theory could be about any of those, right? It has to be something that you are working towards. We are all working towards something, right? And if you don't know what you're working towards, then we need to step back and figure that out, because that's your first step towards actually using data really well in practice, is to know what is our end objective. So for the Delaware Student Success Collaborative, we have goals that have been set out. We have the data points that Shauna set out. Those are our goals, and we know we want to get there through this process of sharing and learning and using the PSAP and building a plan to get there. So the question that we're going to start to tackle today is, what is our theory of action to get there? If we know we want all kids to be college and career ready, what are the steps we're going to take in 4 years, and 3 years, and 2 years today to get us there? So the next slide, you'll see I did, you've probably seen this example actually before, but can you go then? There we go. Just wanted to roll that into like a very simple example of what I mean by this theory of action. So if my goal, like say I'm a district leader and my goal is to get students to enroll in college, then how am I going to get there? As much as I look at that data year to year, and I see it's going up or it's going down, I need a plan for the steps I'm actually going to need to take there, right? And I know that sounds probably simplistic, like of course we have to have a plan to get there, but it doesn't always happen in practice. We actually need to write down our plan. So let's say we want to enroll students in college. I know from research that completing FAFSA is one of the strong indicators of whether or not students who want to go to college will actually enroll. So I'm going to start looking at if my seniors completed FAFSA before they enrolled in college. So how does that get me to my next step? Well, if I want to know at the end of the year who completed FAFSA, then I need to start tracking that earlier in the school year, right? Which I think actually all of our districts on this call are. Who is completing it? By the end of the year, who's completing it in January, who's completing it in October, and so forth. So now we start to pull that back step by step for just our one action point around college enrollment. So then the question we're going to push you on today is, what does this look like for the collaborative and for each of you? Again, we're going to, so actually let's go to the next slide. So here is, again, these are the exact same data points that Shauna just walked through. So for each of these, you need to have your theory of action about where you want to be and how you're going to get there. So the question, what I would say is, I know we did this actually a year ago when we were all together in person, but we want you to look at this list and identify what are like the 2 to 3 that are going to be your priority. And within each of those, what actions are you taking to improve these outcomes? So we've met with, I think, each of the groups on the call separately over the course of the last year. And everyone has really good ground games, right? Like you are doing stuff. You are doing college tours, you are doing FAFSA completions, you are doing college advising, you are looking at course enrollments, but we want to make sure that is connected to one of these things on this list. So we want you to start with your end in mind and work backwards. So what does that mean? What are we doing today to get to proficiency in math and English in 5th grade, 8th grade, or 11th grade? What are we doing to get to be college ready? So that seems most relevant probably for those working in high school. But if we roll that back, what does that mean we need to be doing in middle school? So everyone should have an ownership piece of each of these, no matter where you are. And I actually want to pause. I'm reading the questions here. I actually want to pause and see how, I should have done a poll question, but to see how you all feel about that claim I'm making, that you all should have ownership, regardless of which organization you're in and which part of the continuum you're in, that you can have ownership of any of these or contribute. All right. Looking for reactions by camera here. I think we're good. I see smiles and nodding. All right. So, and going back to what we said at the beginning about why we have brought you here in teams, right, is because you don't, no one fully owns any of these. It has to be a team effort to work together. And we actually need all the organizations on this call, right? We need middle schools to be working with high schools, to be working with higher ed, to be working with our external partners. And so today we're actually going to break you into groups within your organization. But as we go down the road, we will start to make more of those connections about what that team looks like, where we're pulling you between organizations as well. All right, well, so let's move into the activity we're going to be doing. We can go to the next slide. So we want you to go into a breakout room, and Amanda has been, thank you all for those who renamed yourself. Amanda has put you into a breakout room with your organization. The caveat is if you were the only person from your organization, we did group you with others who were the only people from their organizations. I think that happened for a couple of our partner organizations and a couple of our universities. So when we get into your breakout room, we want you to pick 1 or 2 of those student outcome data points. How are our students doing? What are we doing now to improve student outcomes in these areas? So connect the kind of like the day-to-day, what you're doing now to what you're expecting down the road. And then what is a new strategy you can try? And then we're going to give you about 20 minutes within your group to do, to have that discussion. And then when we come back, we want to hear from everybody. So we've left enough time to get a report out from everybody, and then maybe some cross discussion as well. So on the next slide, you'll see we're giving you a little pointer about what data to look at. So for the school districts, we want you to refer to that report that we walked through, that Joyce and I walked through with you last week in the coaching calls. So that's the report from the University of Delaware. Unless the spirits, we know you don't have it, but the data you shared with us last week would be perfect for you to refer to. For higher education, we'd actually like you guys to tackle FAFSA completion. So you can see on the right, we inserted a little chart here. Shauna and Karen were sharing with us that FAFSA completion this year is significantly lower than it was last year. And again, that's not a Delaware issue. We know that's a national issue, but it still is an issue we need to figure out how to address. And then for the partner organizations, we're thinking if you can focus on FAFSA completion, that would be a great one, because then we can have some cross learning with higher ed. If that doesn't make sense for your organization, then you can pick, again, for your organizational data related to student outcomes, one that makes sense to tackle. Shauna or Karen, do you guys want to add anything?
No, I think that's all. And again, we're not asking you to solve the problems, but just to brainstorm, wrestle with what you know about it and where you think there's opportunities for interventions.
Great. Yes, and this is the first step. It takes years to like hone your theory of action and it's a continuous improvement on the strategy. So we just want to get you started thinking. So on the next slide are the discussion questions again. I'm also going to put them in the chat. So a couple things to know. So Amanda did organize people by the list she had, but also how you tagged yourself in your participant name. If you end up in the wrong group accidentally, you can click, you can go down to breakout groups or breakout rooms and click leave, and it'll bring you back to the main room and Amanda can reassign you. Everybody should have others in your room, but if folks have dropped off, the room numbers might have messed up. So if you end up being the only one in your room, please also come back to the main room and we can put you with another group for discussion. And then from NIPSE and from the Department of Ed, we will be bouncing between rooms. So if there is a particular, you need, no one's in your room, but you have questions, please, you can pop back to the main room and let us know and someone will hop over there. But otherwise you'll see us popping in and out just to make sure we're answering all your questions. All right, let me pause one more time to see if there's any questions about the activity. Okay. All right, Amanda, I think you can send us to breakout rooms. Amanda, do we need to assign? Oh, there we go.
Okay. Everyone's in a room.
Did Shauna join a room or did
No, I didn't put her in a room, but she was a co-host, so she might have just joined.
That's what I was gonna, I just want to make sure she didn't get kicked off.
Yep.
Melissa, do you need to be in a room?
Hi, yes, I renamed myself as you guys were talking, but I'm with Capital.
Yep, I will add you to that room now.
Grazie.
Thank you.
No problem. Oh, Dr. Brown, I changed my hair for you again, by the way. Oh, now you know who you're talking to.
I love it. I love it. Keep me guessing. Keep me. Oh, that was good. That made my day. Thank you.
There you go. It's all about life is like a box of chocolates, right?
Yep.
Never
yep.
know what you're gonna get.
Never know.
In my case, it's long hair or no hair. Who knows?
Oh. Keeps people
Oh.
coming back. Keeps them coming back. I get it.
There you go. All right, we'll be back.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, so Joyce, Kelly, Karen, where do you guys want to go? We have Capital, Milford, Christina, Aspire.
Tell me the other groups to me. I just want to make sure I have them for the report out. I got those 4.
Okay, so we have, yep, so Capital, Milford, Christina, Aspire, we have Wilmu, University of Delaware. I have the DOE group, Junior Achievement, and then College Board and Stand By Me is in one room, and Delaware State and GBC is in one room.
Oh, the other folks dropped off from that group.
Yeah.
Okay.
GBC is Goldie Beacom College, just if you need to know that.
And what is, Karen, I think this guy dropped off, but what is UWDE? Is it West Delaware? What is the W?
Oh, United Way of Delaware is UWDE.
Oh,
Because
okay. So if he's around, he's in the wrong room.
this Stand By Me
It
is
sounds
part
like
of
a university acronym. Got it.
Oh, Stand By Me is part of
You
United
know,
Way.
that
I always
makes
have to
sense.
think of what that is. Yeah.
Okay. And then Amanda put all of the Department of Ed folks in a room. Is that right, Karen? Like, will they? We didn't talk about what we wanted to do with your team, but they're in another room right now doing whatever they want to do, I guess.
I guess it's all right. I'm not going in that room though. I see them enough. Joyce, that was so great what you said, how you said it.
Oh, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that really, because my voice comes from one of stumping my foot saying, this how it gonna go. I don't want to do that when I'm visiting people. I try to be diplomatic. Mm-hmm. So it's clear that we have to work on connecting the vertical alignment. That's an area where we can really push.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that one question in the chat, I was texting with Shauna about it, about the person who said she sees her special ed data, but she doesn't see the rest of the school. And so, I think that's pretty telling and probably pretty standard.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that Sharon asked about, so you see, like if a kid says, I'm not going to go to college, then it's like, okay, let's figure out what else you can do.
What you're gonna do. Right.
Like, oh, I was just so glad you were on for that question.
Oh my goodness, the smoke comes out of my ear, and I ultimately get it all the time. I have to fix my face. Like, what the heck? You mean you were 15? Let a kid tell you? And we were doing a coaching call with another district, and the person said the same thing. Like, when they tell me that, I just take them over to CTE. I don't tell them nothing else. What? Yeah. Mind shifts of the adults, beliefs of the adults.
That seems like one of the most important things we should be communicating with our counselors.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like that exact point, and no one's saying what the kids should ultimately end up doing, but you can't take that as an end answer.
Right. You guys say, do you know how to get there? Should you change your mind? No. We don't just not talk to you about it because you say you don't want to do it. But that's why we had non-negotiable KPIs. Everybody had to fill out 3 applications, FAFSA, 2 scholarships. Whether you were going or not, you filled it out. I don't know if people could get there, but that's how we prescribe the work. And you know what? Once the kids get accepted someplace, they get excited because a lot of them think they can't, you know?
Of course, right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness.
So are we popping in someplace?
Yeah. Where do you want to go?
I don't care. I think somebody should go to La Suspira, so.
Yeah, I think you should, if you don't mind. 'Cause
Okay.
I don't mind doing it, but I know she
No,
listens
no.
to you most. Amanda, can you pop Joyce in there? I mean, it's not showing up for us. I don't know. This is what's happening. What happened with the we used to be able to just move, but now we can't. You have to move us.
Joyce is in there.
Did you move her or did she?
No, yeah. So usually what happens is for the first time, I have to move you. And then after that, you can hop in.
Oh, okay. All right. Why don't you put me in the room with the conglomeration of the universities, and I'll just make sure they're on task. The Goldie Beacon and Delaware State or whoever.
I'll put you in room 11.
And I'll go into Capital. I'd like to hear what they're talking about.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi.
Hey there.
You need to be prepared. I will go ahead and throw you back in your room.
I actually just have a quick question. So I'm in the room with my UD colleagues, and a couple of questions that are coming up that we're a little uncertain of how to answer.
Okay.
I know one of the bullet points you mentioned was for the higher education institutions to speak on like the FAFSA completion, and we absolutely want to connect, think about how we're assisting in that project. Our small little challenge today is we don't have anyone represented from our financial aid office. So all of us, including myself, I'm a director of pre-college programs. I do work in the admissions office, but we have different teams in our office. So we're very pre-college focused. So we're doing a lot around like that college readiness piece. So I didn't know how we should report back out. We were wondering.
Yeah, you guys can go ahead. You can go off assignment. You don't have to talk about FAFSA if there's a different point that would work for everyone in the room.
Right.
So I know like some of the data we were looking at with districts last week was about like remediation, kids who were like put into remedial courses, or maybe it's just admissions. Like I think you guys go ahead and pick a data point that makes sense to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. And you'll put me back into the breakout room. It was with Tim Danos and Alejandra McFern.
Yep, I will put you back in.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Sure thing.
Okay, so I have to put you in a room and then remove you because it's not letting me unassign you
Actually,
to a room.
do you see a breakout room at the bottom? Does
Join
that,
breakout
show-
room. I do, yes.
I think if you click that, it might let you go back to your last room.
Okay, all right. I'll try that there. Thank you. If not, I'll be back. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
There we go. She's back in.
I'm going to, they were talking and didn't give me a break, so that's great. Whatever that room's talking, where did Karen go?
So what time are we going to right now?
So I have going to 125.
Okay.
We're like 5 minutes ahead, but we'll
Okay.
make up for it in the report outs.
Sounds
I'm
good.
gonna just go off screen and go take care of an email quick.
I'm gonna go grab some more water, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
close the room in a minute.
Did you give them a warning yet?
I did not.
Yeah, give them a warning and then it'll be closed in 2 minutes. That's not much of a warning, I guess. It's fine. We could go. How many groups do we have? Hold on, we could go a little longer. 1, 2, 3, 4. 9 times 2 is 18. Yeah, give them like a 2-minute warning and then close it at 1:25 and give them the extra minute.
Okay. All right, I'm going to close it down.
Okay. We're going to just wait probably another 45 seconds for everyone to come back to the main room.
Nope, there's your dog.
I don't think we'll get through our entire lesson tomorrow. Just
Hi, we're going to just wait for everyone to come back from breakout rooms, but if you could please remember to mute your microphone as you come back. Right, Amanda, does it look like we have everyone out of breakout rooms?
No, it looks like we're missing still a few people, but for some reason, I'm not able to get them back in the room.
Some people left and had to go to other meetings. It's not that you did something wrong.
That's right. You are correct. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, then we're all set.
But it
Okay,
would have
great.
been entertaining to watch that for the next 10 minutes.
Well, we wouldn't have let it go on for 10 minutes, but appreciate your confidence. All right, so let's just go ahead and start. So we're going to ask each group that was in a breakout room to do a quick 2 to 3 minute share out. I think usually since we have so many breakout groups, I'll just kind of go through the list, but I will ask if anybody wants to offer to go first. Anyone dying to share their conversation?
Capital can kind of share out a little bit. I'll
Fantastic.
kind of take the lead and they can help join in the process. So we mainly talked about the second component here for criteria, career ready high school. We are looking at data for failures in addition to providing some supports for interventions during the school day and or afternoon, in addition to some intervention resources that we're going to be putting together for this school year into the summer. So that's one piece to support those kids to finish up their credits and follow up. We have, in relation to the CTE portal, looked at some approved pathways and their credentials, because in the past we've had credentials that were like kind of not matching up with the state, and the state hadn't really defined what those criteria were, what those credentials were. So now they're a little bit better in relation to CTE, saying these are the credentials that we're wanting these pathways to have. And that's what we're looking at to review and work with our teachers to make sure that we're on par with what they're asking. And the building principal has put in place in the past years, and also coming up, vision meetings to work with each teacher to help support the industry certified criteria, so we can make sure that we're on the right path and whatever they need to help get that through. In addition to providing this year a work-based learning practicum course to support our seniors and even our juniors at this point. This is the first year we've offered it. We're offering it here at Dover High School, also at our Kent County Secondary LLC to support all students' inclusion over there as well. And we're putting potentially some ideas that might help promote building capacity for all kids to take it, with an embedded program and a check-in with at least one of the instructors or supports over the course of the year multiple times. And that would help us at the end of the year when students graduate. They have a CTE program, an awards kind of program, and we offer them stoles if they've been pathway completers as the name of the program. And that kind of signifies you did it. You got certified, you're complete with the pathway. And one of the requirements would be potentially that they have to finish up with the work-based learning course to get that stole, and also that certified, industry certified component. So we're going to talk more a little bit about that in planning. And then in the process too, I think offering over the past couple of years additional approved dual enrollment courses. We've added some in addition to talking about another one that we're going to be working on with either Dell State and or University of Delaware for a culinary management program. And Mr. Berry is also working with the teachers to support a newsletter for CTE. We've done them in the past, but this year we've been a little bit wonky with everything. So he's putting together a newsletter in addition to Dr. Volschel, who's working on some other processes around communication with parents and stuff like that. Let's see. I don't know if I missed anything, but somebody can help me if there is a gap there. I've talked a little bit about some students who may not be doing well, some improved student outcome possibilities and what we could do to support them, and some additional new strategies that we're going to be looking at to put in place.
That's great. Thanks. You guys got a lot done. You're very diligent. You got a lot done in 20 minutes. Thank you.
We have the right team at the right time in the right place, as Mr. Adams would say, basically.
Perfect. All right. Anyone want to offer to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next for Christina. And I will echo a lot of what the great work that our friends down in Capitol are doing under Jean's leadership. So we too are leveraging in Christina opportunities for dual enrollment. to address not only the college readiness, but the career readiness. Right now, we have up to 37 dual enrollment opportunities that we offer across our 3 high schools. So we're really proud of the progress that we've made on the number of dual enrollment opportunities that we have for our kids and continuing to grow that number. We're also focusing specifically on the programs of study within our career and technical areas and ensuring that at this time next year, we have a dual enrollment opportunity as an added value into each one of those programs of study. We feel like that will help us with that work-based component. We too are also focusing on the work-based learning practicum. Our friends at Capital are a year ahead of us. We will institute that next fall for our seniors who are program completers to get that immersive work-based learning experience in their program of study area. And we've also are focusing heavy on the certificate of multiliteracy with one of our high schools really leading the way in our district with 52 students who are scheduled to take the stamp testing that would potentially be certificate of multiliteracy candidates. And that's an opportunity or a missed opportunity that we have not taken advantage of over the last couple of years. So those are the key levers that we're using to address our college and career ready standards.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Dean. All right, who's next?
I'll go. This is Candace from Stand By Me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I was in a group with Diana Frank from the College Board. She and I were the lone wolves from our organization. So we were paired up, and I know Diana may have to jump off in a few minutes, as do I. But we kind of got on, we started out with the idea that we wanted to talk about FAFSA, but it broadened out into many things as conversations do. So we broadened out into the conversation that Joyce Brown started when she talked about a parent that did not have the information about AP classes. And I had 5 similar conversations this past July and August. And I think what was really profound was Diana's comment about wanting to make sure that more rigorous courses offered at high schools look like the cafeteria, right? So that there are opportunities that are shared broadly with all students, no matter who they are and what their sort of background was, but understanding that, you know, their ability to be successful is important. That is something that is a concern for us because we want to be able to support that, knowing, however, that schools are doing like yeoman's work trying to make sure that all kids get all information. And having been in schools for many, many years myself, that is not an easy thing to do. So we haven't cracked that, that solution. We're certainly partners to advocate that. And so that was kind of where our conversation was at that point. We also did talk a little bit about the FAFSA, and I will share this more broadly that Stand By Me, as many of you at this point know, we're taking on a big piece of FAFSA completion, sharing that work with all of our partners. We want to create sort of a common voice and a common message around FAFSA completion and make sure to do exactly what Diana said, make sure that, you know, if you go into a cafeteria and you see that multi-diverse of young people, we want to make sure they all get that information. So we did have a meeting with a small subset group of counselors to have that conversation. We put the word out, and those who wanted to join, we got quite a great feedback on some of the barriers. So we're looking to see what we can do around barriers toward both FAFSA completion and those young people who show up to FAFSA completion sessions. We're looking to do the same with our higher ed partners. So those of you who are here and already responded to Sally's message, We appreciate that. We're looking to also, again, see how we can all get on the same page for FAFSA completion, because it is huge. We don't want to further create more silos with Stand By Me just going out and doing some work and saying, okay, our job is done. You know, we need our partners on the high school side to give us feedback. What can we impact with FAFSA completion, and see if we can ameliorate some of those barriers? And then we need our partners on the recipients, literally they're the recipient side, right, of the higher eds, to do that as well. So I wanted to throw that in to say thank you to this group for that. But there are a lot of barriers, and we're really looking and working hard to see if we can knock some of them down.
That's great. That's what this is all about, right? Breaking down those silos and addressing barriers together. All right, who's next?
I can go from Milford.
Thank you.
So thank you. We really focused on really closing the gap of that circle of saying, where do we start conversations and how do we exit our students? So making sure that we close any gaps or misconceptions for our students. Really increasing our conversations with the middle school and making sure at the middle level that we're starting conversations of being college and career ready. So often we are very focused on what college do you want to go to? Where are you going to college? Are you going to get seed scholarship? And we neglect the fact that it is okay not to go to college, but to be ready for the workforce or military. So making sure that we really transition smoothly into using Major Clarity, and front loading more of it than we anticipated, really thinking that a lot of the work would be at the high school level with Major Clarity, but we want to push a lot of it into the middle school so the conversations can happen earlier, and really start digging into what career pathways are our students interested in. Making sure that we're setting up multiple opportunities for our students. Our schedule allows students to complete multiple programs of study, so allowing them that opportunity to really explore before they get out into the workforce or before they choose in a college that's set and realize that's not what they want, but to encourage our students to explore while they are in high school. And then, like Jean and others have said, really working to expand our work-based learning program. We have started that process and we've worked towards improving it, but really wanting that to start at the freshman year of some sort of freshman academy, something that will allow us to start embedding those work-based learning and CTE standards early on. So then when they get to their entry level courses for programs of study, and even their core classes, their core content areas of understanding while they're learning about these standards and the connections that they're making. So really just hoping that we can start that picture for the students earlier so that at the end game, they're better prepared to make those decisions.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone want to step up next?
Sure, we can go next. This is Kareem McLemore from Delaware State University. I had the pleasure of having Brittany from Goldie Beacom and Marjorie from Wesley College in the room with us. So we did discuss how are our students doing. So we had a discussion in regards to our retention rates. Discussed at Del State, we have over 70% of our students being retained. And for the other 30%, we have two populations that are geared towards trying to retain those students back, which is called a recruit back effort, where they gauge students in regards to why did they leave? Did they leave because of SAP, satisfactory academic progress? If so, we try to see that they engage with any paid for hours outside of Del State, went to a community college. And if it was for any financial reasons, we try to see if there are any additional resources that the institution has come into play with that we can assist them. And then we got in depth with how do we improve students' outcomes in certain areas. So we discussed the FAFSA. Goldie Beacom has a strong FAFSA outreach to their students as it relates to engaging them at the forefront and through the academic year. Margie discussed the Wesley initiative, and we also discussed Del State's initiative called FAFSA Fridays. That's where our executive director of financial aid, and 2 financial aid counselors engage not only the current students, but students who are in our applicant pool. We sent out correspondence 2 weeks prior to the FAFSA opening October 1 and having them jump on board. But since COVID, it's a virtual affair. And the financial aid director discusses how to apply for FAFSA, how to avoid verification, meaning that using the IRS data retrieval tool instead of just winging it. And if they are in verification, what are the necessary steps to make sure that you provide all the appropriate documentations in order for any institution that you're wanting to attend? Get you a nice package deal in order for you and your parents to make a concise decision on your educational opportunities. And we also discussed, you know, as it relates to us talking to our students in regards to FAFSA and special conditions, especially during the COVID piece, what it looks like for students whose parents may have lost income, or students who may have lost a parent, how they go from a dependent to an independent student. So those are the touch key points that we're doing to definitely improve a student's outcome in these areas. Because I think what we discussed and realized, a lot of students are super excited that they've actually been accepted into an institution, but talking to the parents more so about the financial implications, and parents understanding that they may have to take out a Parent Plus loan if the student is not a 50 to 100% on an academic merit scholarship. What does it look like for a parent to truly provide those resources to a student to make sure that they continue what they started? And new strategies. So we also talked about new strategies during COVID. We talked about it from an admission standpoint. What does it look like right now in this day and age where the applicants may not be as high as the previous years when you're going to on-site college fairs? We discussed where students may not have the opportunity to speak with you, but took some of your materials from your table and went home and filled out the application and mailed it to you, or went online and mailed it. So now these days are different, and the applicant pool may be a little smaller. So now you got to focus more on a higher opportunity to engage those students who've applied, been admitted, and what's the true opportunity to get those who actually confirm to be enrolled students. So we talked about some of those pieces, because in the admissions world, we normally look at a 50-50-50. If you got 100% applied, you're looking at admitting 50%. Out of the 50% you admitted, you're looking at maybe 50% confirming. And out of that 50% who confirm, you may have 20 to 30% who are actually being enrolled. So we're wanting to increase that true confirmed number into enroll applicants and make sure they go through the process. So those are a lot of things that we actually discussed on our call.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we have 4 more groups. Anyone want to step up?
We can go.
Thank you.
So I'm from Junior Achievement, and like our other nonprofit organizations here in the collaborative, we play a support role, and specifically in helping with financial literacy and career readiness, which can also be parlayed into continuing education readiness. So as far as that financial literacy piece, we're just trying to provide something that students don't get a whole lot of in their schooling, but also something that can prepare them for the FAFSA. So that was actually interesting to hear, and probably something that we can be more supportive with as well, getting students to fill out the FAFSA at a more consistent rate, if they understand what the financial implications of their future are and how important financial aid can be for that. But we're also heavily helping with the career readiness, as far as telling students through our career exploration fairs and the curriculum that we provide, what soft skills they need to possess in order to be an effective employee. But one thing that sets Junior Achievement apart is that we also give them access to volunteers that act as mentors and examples of real world employees in the fields they may want to go into. And we also help connect them with companies and businesses that they may want to work with in the future. So that's what we're focused on, and we're just trying to provide that support as well. A lot of our programming in the past has been those face-to-face human interactions. So that's been a big challenge for us, is adapting what we do to meet the needs of the classrooms that we have today, and probably will continue to have, even when things go back to quote unquote normal. There's going to be a lot more digital implementation. So we've moved our materials to be digital. We've made it so that our volunteers can beam into our classrooms and provide support that way. And most of our programs have been made free, even outside of the collaborative. And as far as new strategies, like I said, continuing on that, our digital materials are online. That's new. So, we're still making improvements to that. We're still seeing what's working and what's not. We're still getting feedback from our educators. We've moved our career fairs to be online so that, we have our career exploration volunteers come to us and have students attend panels instead of physically coming to a building and going from table to table. That's had to been reworked, and logistically that looks a lot different. As far as our financial literacy, that capstone simulation that we have where students get to budget as an adult for a month, that's had to be reworked online. So really what we're trying to do this year is we're trying to meet students and educators where they are and adapt that line as things move in a digital classroom without sacrificing that volunteer and mentorship company component that we provide.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, we have 3 more. Aspira, University of Delaware, and Wilmu.
Hi, this is Mel Polizzi from Wilmu. I'd be happy to go next.
Great, thank you.
Right, and I think Allison will be joining me with this as well. For us, much like the others have said, working with students to help them complete FAFSA has been a bit of a challenge with being within a pandemic environment. A lot of the things that we've done prior was meet the students at the schools to help them to complete these. However, it wasn't always a guarantee that there would be a strong turnout anyway. Noticing, much less starting to come and join us at these events and things. Also, what we've seen in terms of recruitment is that when we are reaching out to counselors about setting up events or tours with their students, one of the requests is please encourage the students to fill out the FAFSA because just across the board, it's been down in general. So we do put that plug into our presentations. But there's no way to measure whether or not that is helping to increase the completion of those forms. So some of the things that we thought we could do in the future is we could possibly create some sort of step-by-step webinar where people can have access to that when they're ready for it. So in an in-person event, it might be a specific day and time that we're available. Well, if it's a recorded webinar, they could go on at their leisure. Another thing that we could do is reach out to community members and see when within the groups within their communities where they would need us, if they would want to do a virtual event where they could ask questions or we could help them through the documents themselves. We could make ourselves available then and create workshops for the students and parents together so that they could fill out these forms and just making very easy, readable, program sheets and things where it says, okay, this is what you need to bring with you to complete this FAFSA. Just make it a little bit easier. Allison, was there anything that I missed?
No, ma'am, I think you covered it.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go first, Aspira, if you would like.
Yes, thank you.
So Aspira has very limited data in that they are just starting a high school this year. And have 80 ninth graders. But they did have the students do a couple things. So we've had a career fair. We've been working with Stand By Me and have done and junior achievement and have done a career fair for half of the ninth graders, both those that remote and here using their new remote platform. We also have had Stand By Me come in and do some other activities with them. And we did do a career fair for the 8th grade students in terms of helping them to begin to think about their future. We've also administered the PSAT. And so we've done some taking a look at the data and looking at especially some of the things that we found that have been interesting is we looked at entry points in terms of when students are entering into the charter school and how that plays out in their readiness for high school success and beyond, which is what the PSAT 8-9 measures. And then we've also taken a look at how many of those students are special education and what kinds of supports we might need to put in place with them. And what we've really noticed is that while we're not necessarily completely happy with where we are with the evidence-based reading and writing score, where we've got some significant work to do is in the area of mathematics. And so talking about when we know we have those students that are coming late into our system, how are we measuring the skills that they're coming in with mathematics? And then what kind of supports are we putting in place once we identify the needs for students? Because the typical RTI for some of these students, especially when the majority of them are coming in well below, may not provide the supports that they need. So looking at things like that and identifying professional development that we need to provide for our teachers. And I think also causing us to go back and making sure that, I don't necessarily like to use the word fidelity, but that when we're looking in classrooms, are we really taking a close look at what's being done with students? What does the teaching and the learning look like in each of those classrooms?
Thank you. So let's do University of Delaware.
Yeah, sure. So good afternoon to everybody. So for our discussion, we focus on a few things. The first is that we don't necessarily have the data and from the Student Financial Services Office to understand what the picture looks like for FAFSA completion at UD and what efforts are underway. But we did make a point to make that as an action item where we can be able to, inquire about that data and inquire about, where the status is and, what are some activities to bring up FAFSA completion for students applying to the University of Delaware. The other part too that we looked at was, thinking about some activities that we're doing in the admissions office. So while we don't have the data, I can speak, generally about some things that are underway of what are we doing to help students, have more access to the application process. So, some of them, include, as we've transitioned to a virtual environment, just like everybody, we've been doing things such as, having multiple counselor, nights and counselor events with the school counselor community. We have set hours where we almost like office hours where we can be able to speak with the student virtually on Zoom to talk to them about questions they may have about their applications, about information that they need to move forward. The other thing too that we've been doing to try to improve access is that we've been having multiple events where students that may be missing application items that they need to discuss a little bit further, they're not sure about. We're hosting more and more of those events to bring, college application completion rates higher. So we are doing, multiple steps along those ways. The other part too is thinking about what we're doing on the pre-college side. What are we doing to engage with students? And one of them, that I know a lot of you on the line know about is our College Readiness Scholars Institute program, the CRSI program. And I can put the link in the chat in a little bit. But that program, has now been around since 2013. We first, of course, want to thank the Christina School District and the Capital School District, and when it did exist, Delaware Design Thinking Academy, who partnered with us, for a number of years to send their students to the program and their support. We do have some resources now where we are able to expand out to the state. So we did think about, can we outreach to more students? Can we serve more students? And we are, where as of today, we've now, served 37 high schools throughout the entire state, which we're excited about. And we've served over 234 students. So we know about that. We are also looking to, increase our outreach to middle school students. So that's something that is something we're hoping to, use as a new action item over this coming year and beyond. to increase the number of 9th and 10th grade students that we would be serving in our program over time. The other part too is working with students from Kent and Sussex County. So starting in the 2019 cohort was when we could serve students all over the state. So really it's about deepening those relationships with school counselors, deepening relationships with students, working with community-based organizations to make sure that we can be able to do outreach to those students, tell them about what the programs are about, and be able to serve those students. And we're excited about those opportunities that we've had. And then the last is that, we are, monitoring, it's easiest to monitor how students are doing when they apply to the University of Delaware, and should they decide to attend UD. So there's steps that we do to check the college matriculation rates, and also working with National Clearinghouse, to check and see, our students from the program enrolling in college. And so we do see that, and we also understand that we aren't the only input of why a student would go to college. So we are looking at a whole host of things, although we are excited that 89% of the students that have participated in the program have enrolled in college after they've completed high school. And should they decide to attend UD, there are services such as the Blue Hen Success Collaborative that help us monitor student performance and where we can play a role. So we have a good idea of where things are, but also some ideas of how we can best understand the situation, how students are doing that we serve.
Great, thank you. So I know we are like 1 minute at time, but we just have one more group. So I'm going to ask John from the Department of Ed to do a very quick report out from their group, and then we'll hand it over to Shauna to close us out with next steps.
You got it. Thanks, Kelly. What our conversation really boiled down to is the quality of the data you're working with is directly related to the quality of the data you have input into the systems. So what are you doing at the local level to ensure that you're using the right course codes, right? That you're using the right entry codes and guidelines that are the most current, because those things all impact the amount of funding you receive in order to deliver these supports, but also your measurement in terms of, what is our baseline and has something been effective or not? And who's responsible for making sure that that's being reviewed, and it's being reviewed before the last minute that it impacts you. Kelly, back to you and Shauna.
Fantastic, thank you. Shauna, I'll hand it right over to you to talk about next steps.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to be super quick because if you're like me, you're running to another meeting right after this. So our next steps, I just wanted to connect the dots. As you know, we invited parent and student representatives to join our group. They participated in the equity workshops that we had in January and February. So we wanted to just make sure that they had some context about why this group exists and what their role will be in participating before we invite them to be active members in the larger group. And so we will be organizing meetings with them in the coming weeks, just to give them a space to really get caught up to speed and understand, process what they've learned in those equity workshops, and prepare to be able to join us in the April meeting. And that will be our goal. Also, we will be spending our next 2 meetings, April and May, talking about the post-secondary advisement plan and really diving in as a group to understand how can we make that process more effective, thinking about what we've talked about with regard to the data, what we've talked about in terms of equity, we've talked about in terms of inclusion of parents and students in the process. How do we then evaluate the post-secondary planning process, the plan itself, and how we engage our school teams and start to make some interventions that could be meaningful and impactful for your districts and across the state. So I'm going to use you guys again as that state model to give us some targeted, directed feedback and really think deeply about how to strengthen that process. So we will be sending out a doodle poll so we can get our next few meetings on the books for everybody. And so if you can just look out for that email later this week and respond as quickly as possible, we hope to get meetings on the calendars for April and May and hopefully June as well. Thank you everyone for your participation, great dialogue, feedback, and questions today. If you need anything, please let us know. There were some resources shared in the chat, so please make sure you check that out before you log off. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, Shauna.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
As you select days in May, April and May, remember that we've got AP testing coming up. and some other things like that. So we want to avoid days which are standard across the state.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.